So you are a recipient of Inspire Scholarship by Department of Science and Technology.
Yes, sir.
Is that the same as Science Talent Scholarship?
So this scholarship is divided into 3 tiers. One is for those who are of junior level, I would say high school level. And what I received was that of intermediate level. It is called a scholarship for higher education.
Higher education. So where did you do your intermediate?
Sir, I did my intermediate from Sri Sai Inter College, which is in my home district, Barabanki.
Barabanki. So what is Barabanki famous for?
Sir, Barabanki is pioneer in mentha oil production in India because more than 60% of mentha oil in Uttar Pradesh is exported from Barabanki. In cultural history, Barabanki is famous for Deva Sharif, which is a Sufi saint shrine, and Mahadeva temple, which is originated to Mahabharata era.
So who are the famous people that Barabanki has produced?
So one of the most famous people from Barabanki.
Yes, sorry.
So one of the most famous people from Barabanki was Mr. Rafi Ahmed Kidwai, which was one of the cabinet ministers in India's first independent cabinet, and Mr. Kuwar Digvijay Singh, which was a famous hockey player from India. He was also from Barabanki, and there was also a saint named Jagjivan Das, who was one of the pioneer in Namdhari sect. He was also from Barabanki, and lastly, there is a famous poet named Kumar Barabanki. He is also called Abru-e-Ghazal, so he is also from Barabanki.
I see. So you are you're very fond of playing cricket. You're captain of the department cricket team in college, and then this is also one of your hobbies. So
Yes.
when do you think India played its first test match?
Sorry, sir, I'll have to read about that.
Okay, and who was our test captain, first test captain?
So, I think it's not Mr. Mansoor Ali Khan Pataudi.
He was our first test captain.
Sorry, sir, I'll have to read on that.
Okay. So can you name 5 test captains in the recent years? One after the other. Say the present one is, of course, Virat Kohli. Before that?
So before Virat Kohli, it was Mr. MS Dhoni. And
Okay.
before MS Dhoni, Anil Kumbale was our captain. And before Anil Kumbale, for a very small period of time, Sachin Tendulkar also captained India in only a single or 2 series. Before Sachin Tendulkar, Mohammad Azharuddin was also our captain, and after Mohammad Azharuddin, it was Saurav Ganguly who captained our country.
No, but Sachin Tendulkar was not there only for a very short while. He was there for considerable time. So you don't seem to know your cricket very well. So you are a batsman or a bowler?
So I was a batsman.
Batsman. At what you were one down, or what was opener, or at what stage of the batting order did you come?
So I used to open the innings, but sometimes in accordance with my team's needs, I also used to shuffle my batting order to the bottom.
So who are the present openers of the Indian team?
So it is Rohit Sharma and Shikhar Dhawan in ODIs, and in test matches, it was Shubman Gill along with Rohit Sharma in the recent Australia series.
And after Australia series, there was another series.
Yes, it was with England.
Yes. Who opened?
So I think it was Rohit Sharma and sorry, sir, I'm not able to recall.
You have also written watching documentaries as your hobby. So what kind of documentaries do you watch?
So I watch documentaries centered on socio-cultural themes, as well as some investigative documentaries also I watch.
Can you give us some examples?
So recently I watched a documentary named Period, End of Sentence. It was centered around the menstrual hygiene of women and the stigma they face in their day-to-day lives.
And anything else that you watched recently?
So I also watched Secrets of Sinoli. It was a documentary based upon the recent excavation in Bagpat district of Uttar Pradesh, where some startling evidence were found which contradict our existing information about Indus Valley civilization.
So what was the finding?
So one of the major finding was that the weapons which were found in the excavations, earlier weapons were for decorative purposes, but these weapons, the swords, antenna swords which are found there, they had hilt, which meant that these weapons were used for warfare purposes. Also near the graves of women, the weapons were placed in upright position, which indicate that there were women warriors also. Lastly, the presence of wheel and the shape which the chassis of chariots was D-shaped, which indicates that the wheel over there in chariots, and the presence of wheel, which is usually attributed to Aryan invasion, the wheels are present even before Aryan civilization also.
What is carbon dating?
So carbon dating is a technique which is used to find the age of any object or any fossil by calculating the amount of radioactive isotope of carbon which has been emitted into the atmosphere.
Why have we stopped?
I think there is some connectivity problem with Neeraj sir.
Shall I continue?
Yes, I think you should continue when he comes. You continue.
Okay. So, Adarsh, am I audible to you, Adarsh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So this sudden change I saw from science, you went on to sociology as your option. Why didn't you stick with science?
So it was actually decided that I would go with physics optional as my UPSC subject. But during the course of my graduation in the last year, I realized that physics as a subject was not something I was very comfortable in. So I started looking for some alternatives. But since my mother had graduated in sociology and I used to read her books a lot, so I decided to pursue sociology as an option.
Okay. Now you put IFS at number 5. Why is it so? Have you put it at a higher slot than you wanted, or at a lower slot that you wish to? I mean, 5 is a number that doesn't really get you anywhere.
So my motive for keeping IFS at 5th position was due to my inclination towards Indian Revenue Services, because my father is a taxation consultant. So I have a prior somewhat exposure to taxation and revenues. So that is why I wanted to make a career, prioritize a career in revenue services, so that I can utilize the experience and the exposure which I already have in.
No, it doesn't fully answer my question as to why IFS at number 5. Do you wish to get into IFS or wish to keep it out of your options?
So I do not intend to keep it out of my options. I just wanted to prioritize Indian Revenue Services more than Indian Foreign Services. If I get Indian Foreign Services, I'll try my best to contribute to whatever way I can.
have you read the 15th Finance Commission report or aware of it? Okay.
Yes, sir. I'm aware
What is
of
the
it.
title of the report?
Sorry, sir. I'm not able to recall that.
Okay. It is the COVID times. It is headed by Mr. N.K. Singh,
Thank
former Revenue Secretary to Government of India, and it's called the COVID times. What do you know about the CSR, corporate social responsibilities of the companies?
So, corporate social responsibility of companies, as underlined in Companies Act, is an obligation by corporates to the society within which they are operating, and this contribution is in the form of monetary terms. The companies are required to keep 2% of their net profits accumulating in last 3 years to a designated CSR fund, which is spent in physical infrastructure and intangible infrastructure like health and education. There is a certain criteria. For example, if a company has a net profit over 5 crores, then it is mandated to oblige by CSR.
Is it only health and education?
No, sir, not necessarily. The company is entitled to spend it in whichever way it can. Apart from health and education, many companies have contributed to data connectivity, internet penetration also.
What recently happened in the Nanda Devi? There was some Nanda Devi glacier. There was some. What was the issue that came to hand?
So there was a glacial lake outburst flood, which happened in Nanda Devi. What usually happens is that glaciers are contained by dams which are constituted by the moraines, which is usually the glacial till. What happens is that when a glacier is overburdened, or I would say the load of glacier increases, the dams, they often breach, and the moraines, when the moraines disappear, the glacier often accelerates with a faster velocity, and it wreaks havoc.
I'll bring you back to the corporate social responsibility. Has there been a rethinking on the CSR in some aspects? For instance, the Swachh Bharat mission. Has it been some? Did it have to be tweaked? Did it have to be a course correction had to be effected? What was it?
So there have been certain complaints that the CSR of companies. First is that the companies usually prefer to spend their CSR in their nearby local activities, and the disproportionate amount of CSR is spent in physical infrastructure and health and education. The other sphere of society which are often deprived of CSR funding. So there was Injeti Srinivas committee which was constituted to recommend on the CSR funding. It gave certain recommendation. For example, it said that CSR should also be spent on the restoration of ancient heritage monuments, and the CSR funds which are often lying unspent should not be done so. It also said that there should be a regular audit of CSR funding, and that audit should be by an independent committee instead of the one which has a liaison with the company. And lastly, one of the major recommendation of that was that companies should not prioritize spending over local resources only, because this creates a development deficit in the nearby district. Companies should try and spend in the far off district as well, where the opportunity of CSR spending are high.
You mentioned about heritage. Okay, let's talk about heritage. UNESCO Heritage has listed out some cities in India. Which are they? Are you aware of which was the first city, which was the second city that they listed out? UNESCO Heritage.
So I am aware of few of the cities. I'm not aware of total number of cities. One of them is in my home state. Varanasi is one of the heritage cities. Ahmedabad is also a heritage city. Mumbai is also a heritage city. So these three I'm aware of.
Okay, see, the expectations from you will be very high. You know the reason? You know the reason?
So
You'll be
because
one
of
of
my
the
age?
pardon? Yeah,
Yeah.
that is one. Yeah, and also because it's your first attempt and you made it up to here. That's a very remarkable achievement, but that raises the expectations of the board. So you be prepared for sixers and full tosses and spins and swings, everything coming your way. You get prepared, but that's a good opportunity you have. Now, tell me, what was the Myanmar military coup? There was a coup in Myanmar. What was it about?
So Myanmar military coup was the one where the Myanmar military, often called as Tatmadaw, it said that the electoral practices in the recent democratic elections in Myanmar, the elections were rigged, and by accusing the present regime of being complicit in that electoral malpractices, it dethroned, the dethroned would be the wrong term, I would say, but it delegitimized the present status of Miss Aung San Suu Kyi, and it occupied the governance and administration of the entire country. It is not the first time that it has happened. Myanmar military has been organizing coup earlier also. At present, the matter is sub judice in the court of Myanmar, and Aung San Suu Kyi is to present in the court.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Since you put IFS at number 5, so I would expect some questions coming your way on the IR also. Indo-Pacific. Say something about the Indo-Pacific.
So, Indo-Pacific is the recently emerging strategic sphere, because the sphere of international relations has shifted from transatlantic to Indo-Pacific in recent times. Indo-Pacific constitute about 2/3 of the total trade happening in the world, and it owns about 60% of the entire population of the globe. Because of the mineral availability and fishing prospect in Indo-Pacific, and also the strategic sea lanes of communication in that region, it has becoming a hot topic of pursuit between countries like China, which are trying to assert their dominance, and countries like India, which are collaborating with the small island countries to secure the sea lanes of communication and strategic autonomy in that space.
Okay, very good. Now, others, tell me something about sociology. Like history, we call a study of the past. What is the area of sociology? Like anthro, you would call again a study of the past from a different sphere. How would you, where would you compartmentalize sociology?
So sociology encircles both, I would say, anthropology as well as history, because it is often said that sociology is present history and history is past sociology. While history is concerned with the chronological narratives which are arranged from one chronological time to another, and it offers a coherent account of activities which had happened in the past. Sociology, on the other hand, takes into account the social institutions and how individuals interact with those social institutions. For example, in history, we tend to study French Revolution from the perspective of chronological, or I would say eventful manner. But sociology tends to go deeper, how the individuals, they often, what they feel about social institutions, and how the women and other social groups of that era tended to operate. So sociology does not have a chronological element to it. It is more broader in perspective rather than going in the deeper depth, like history.
What is historiography? What is historiography?
So historiography is the collection and arrangement of the events in history in order to prepare a detailed narrative which can be utilized in sociological studies as well as other scientific studies.
What are your views on the farm laws?
So I believe farm laws are good measures in order to improve the ecological sustainability of farming, as well as phasing out the incentives which are being detrimental to the overall ecosystem of agriculture economy in India. So the recently introduced provisions of introducing alternate mechanism as well as introducing provisions for contract farming will allow investment in warehousing structures, as well as will enhance our equitability in agriculture, because at present our agriculture economy is quite skewed. It is more favorable to northwestern farmers in India. So it aims to create a better arbitrage for farmers and a better availability to customers.
But then why all this protest?
So protests are happening because the farmers are apprehensive that the mandis which are there might be discontinued in the future because of the alternate system of private companies entering into the agriculture market. Also, there is a fear of MSPs being discontinued in future, although there have been assurances from the government that MSPs would be there, but farmers are apprehensive that MSPs would be discontinued. Also, there is a certain amount of skepticism towards private sector in farmers. So that is another concern. That is why the protests have been going on.
Which of the sociologists would you consider to have succeeded in his study of society, or his relevance for long-lasting relevance? Which of the sociologists, according to you, have been successful?
So Mr. M.N. Srinivas is who I consider was successful to a much greater extent in capturing the dynamism of Indian society, because before Mr. M.N. Srinivas, our caste system was understood from a very static viewpoint, which was a Varna viewpoint. M.N. Srinivas introduced concepts like vote bank politics, dominant caste, Sanskritization, Westernization, which captured a dynamic picture of Indian society and how middle class is influencing our social and institutional framework of India. So I believe Mr. M.N. Srinivas was the one who is more relevant at present time.
Okay, so according to you, Mr. Srinivas. But do you think other Western thinkers have been more accurate in the study of the Western societies?
So I say in the study of Western societies, you said.
Yeah, Western societies, yes.
So there's a difference between Western society and Indian society, because in Indian society, the modernization and the changing aspect of the time have been somewhat fragmented, because we have great and little tradition existing side by side. While if you see the example of Western society, the transition from classical to modern societies has been somewhat smooth, and the coexistence of great and little tradition is not much apparent in Western society. So it is, I would say, much easier to study the Western society in coherent terms than in India, because in India, as they often say, that the traditions and modernity, they exist together, unlike in Western society. So this is one of the reasons why study of Indian society is more complicated.
More complicated. Okay. Now you tell me something about the what lessons have we learned? Not what we have done, but where were the challenges that we were not able to address in the current crisis, the health crisis?
So first challenge would be, I would say, relating to political framework and administrative framework of our country, because we had not listed disaster in any of the list, like say, state list, union list, and concurrent list. Also, there was not a separate entry which would ensure the coordination between central and state government. So federal tensions emerged due to this crisis. So this is where I think we should learn a lesson and introduce an epidemic bill and a new entry in our concurrent list. Secondly, the expenditure on health infrastructure, which was stressed for so long, is also a cause of concern. And the present crisis, it exposed the deficiency of our medical infrastructure in our country. Thirdly, I'd say the social security framework of India, it also needs to be revisited in the light of present pandemic, because we have seen in the migrant exodus and the rising domestic violence cases as well, the marginalized section of society, they often feel disincentivized in the times of this crisis, because the person who owe their employment to informal sector, they often are at the receiving end of such pandemics. So these are the areas I think we should.
You haven't mentioned the availability of doctors, the paramedicals. You've not mentioned them. The shortfalls there.
Yes, so when I say medical infrastructure,
Okay,
I mean the
them.
institutions and the presence of personnel, as well as the funding to the medical fraternity as a whole. It needs to be revisited, because India spends only about 1% on its health expenditure of GDP. So this needs to be enhanced.
Now, my final question may be, unless I am prompted to ask something else, how do you view yourself as a civil servant? I mean, you can compartmentalize them. You've seen them in so many areas. Someone writing a success story, someone not able to meet up to the expectations of the people or of the masters, political masters. Where do you fit in? How do you feel that you will be a success in the in civil services society? What are your areas of strength?
Sir, first of all, I'm not prone to emotional extremes like anger and complacence. I'm not prone to those vulnerabilities. So I believe I can be an emotional intelligent person in the terms of administration. Secondly, I'd say I try to assimilate the diverse viewpoint, and I do not have any ideological polarity towards a certain viewpoint. So I try to assimilate the best out of everyone. Basically, I try to be balanced in my judgment. Thirdly, I try to be coherent in terms of my thoughts and actions. So not just moral integrity, intellectual integrity is also which I value. So I believe that this is something I can utilize in my administration. And lastly, I'm a avid learner. I'll try to learn from whatever way I can. So I'll take accountability of my mistakes and will learn from those mistakes to ensure that in future I do not repeat any of my mistakes.
You haven't mentioned empathy as one of your qualities, sterling qualities. Do you think it is very important for a civil servant to be empathetic?
Yes, I apologize. Empathy is
it's
one of
all
the
right.
major.
No need to apologize. It's just that, okay. Because looking at you, I thought that you are an empathetic person. So I just thought I'll put it across to you. Now, my final question. Now, tell me, in relation to the Indian forests, where does cheetah stand in relation to our forests? Cheetah.
So cheetah is extinct in India. At present, only the Iranian cheetah is there. Indian cheetah has been extinct for a long period. So recently, there were also talks of reintroducing Iranian cheetah in India. So cheetah is extinct in India.
So we are expecting cheetahs to be back in India to some.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Now my final question to you. What shall we say? Okay, let's go to your back to sociology. Karl Marx had on many subjects written many things on religion, on economy, on social change, on which of them would you consider to be very close to reality?
So his theory on alienation is something I believe and I see in the contemporary world is very relevant, because we have seen that as the humans they are modernizing and the new avenues of economic opportunities are being introduced, the amount of alienation and marginalization of human from their very being is being increased, due to which humans are resorting to cults and sects. There are also the therapies for tackling depressions and anxiety. So this is something Karl Marx had already emphasized, that as the capitalism become more entrenched, the amount of alienation from human, from his very even own personality, it will increase. So with the advent of service sector and work from home in the societies of Bengaluru IT sector, we have seen that the alienation is increasing. So Karl Marx was relevant here.
Last question. I am again tempted to come back to the foreign service because you mentioned at 5, so you may expect a question on this thing. Has our foreign policy been consistent and has it been a success? Say over the last 20 years, I would take it back to 20 years.
So our foreign policy has been dynamic, I'll say, because on various occasions we have tried and practiced that our strategic autonomy is ensured, as well as there were instances where we decoupled the existing narratives. For example, in the narrative of Israel and Palestine, we have decoupled those narratives. We have voted in the favor of Israel, and we have voted in the favor of Palestine also on the basis of issues. Also, we have shifted from our dependence on the West to the Act East policy, where we are now starting new avenues of interaction with the island countries and with the eastern sector with Myanmar and countries like Russia also in the exploration of Far East. So we are more and more dynamic in our approach. And one more thing which India has been practicing in the recent past is that we have mixed our hard power with the soft power. For example, if you consider the example of China, we have introduced the Wuhan spirit as a symbol of our soft power. But in the Galwan clashes, we saw that we had the element of hard power also.
Yes, very good. I'm
Thank you,
impressed.
sir.
Arvind Mohan Saab?
Yes. So Adarsh, you said you have very good knowledge of taxation. That's why you're preferring for IRS. So what's the present tax to GDP ratio of India?
So in the recent budget, the tax to GDP ratio in India was 9.9%, in which the contribution of direct taxes was 4.9% and indirect taxes was 5%.
So how do we compare with other countries of the world?
So in terms of tax to GDP ratio, India does not fare very well in comparison to its Asian as well as OECD counterparts, because if you combine center and state revenues, the tax to GDP ratio contributes to 16% only. But in OECD countries, that is almost double. It is about 35% of GDP. So this is an area where we need to improve ourselves.
So how do we improve it? What steps can be taken?
So first of all, formalization of informal sector is needed, because a large portion of our taxation revenues is foregone because of the presence of parallel economy and black economy prevailing in informal sector. Secondly, we should try and rationalize our taxation exemptions, because at present in the national savings scheme, our taxation exemptions are skewed towards those who are consuming more. So we need to rationalize it so that exemptions are in the favor of those who consume less. And we need to shift our dependence from the indirect tax to the direct tax, so that the progressive taxation instead of regressive can be promoted. In order to promote direct tax, we can introduce some of the measures like incentivizing those who are taxpayers, because at present less than 2% of Indian population pay income tax. So we can incentivize them by awarding them. And also we can rationalize the direct tax through direct tax code, which is in consultation process currently.
What is this presumptive taxing?
Sorry, sir, I'm not aware of that.
Okay. You talked about contract farming. What is contract farming?
So in conventional farming, what happens is that farmers usually take their procurement to mandis, and mandis act as middlemen, where mandis distribute these the crops to the state governments. But in contract farming, the role of mandis is minimized, and those who are entrepreneurs and the food aggregators, they themselves enter into agreements with farmers, and this agreement is guided by certain consideration. For example, the amount of pesticide and fertilizer that a farmer would use, and the amount of the farming crops which the entrepreneur would be procuring, and the price is often agreed at beforehand. So contract farming from the farmer side, it ensures that he has a steady amount of income, and on the company side, it ensures that a steady supply is there.
So it is a win-win situation both for the farmer as well as for the company, in your words.
Yes, sir.
So why are the farmers opposing that contract farming?
So one of the primary reason is that the farmers consider that those who are procuring, the private sector which is procuring their crops, has an advantage in terms of legal expertise and awareness, due to which the litigation arising out of contract farming would disfavor the farmers. Also, there are certain instances in the past, for example, the vanilla farming of Kerala in 2003 had resulted in the suicides of farmers, because they could not enforce the legal obligation of the companies. So the past skepticism also has a role to play. Lastly, at present, the provision in the law which mandates that the SDM would be the final authority to arbitrate on this manner. But the farmers believe that there should be a decentralized authority so that they can better convey their problems to the authority.
Is SDM the final authority, or there is something else above? Supposing SDM has taken a decision, can it be challenged further?
Yes, sir. There are provisions that the award by SDM can be challenged further in the courts.
Now, since you are a student of sociology, why is there a sudden increase of demand for reservation by different sections of society, which was not there earlier? Suddenly, every section is demanding reservation. What is the reason behind it?
Sir, this concept was explained by M.L. Srinivas in the form of dominant caste. We have seen the rise of Jats and Marathas and Reddys. These castes have a specific feature in common. They tend to vernize their caste. What I mean by vernize is that they tend to horizontally integrate their caste and demand political mobilization for certain incentives, which they believe that they were deprived from them. And in the areas where agrarian crisis and unemployment is rampant, this political mobilization of caste often results in the demand for reservation and affirmative action. For example, in the Haryana, the demand is because of the rampant unemployment in Haryana, and in the UP, the rise of Ahirs and Jats and Gurjars was because of the agrarian distress prevailing in UP. So when these castes acquire numerical strength and political mobilization, they demand for reservation.
And we have been growing economically, but it is said that the growth of India is a jobless growth. What is your view?
So if we compare our economic data from the last 40 years, the progress on employment rate has not been commensurate with the progress in our GDP growth rate. So that is why the term jobless growth is used, because unemployment rate in India has not been improved upon very significantly. There are certain reasons for that. For example, the labor laws are restrictive in nature, due to which companies often feel skeptic of hiring laborers. The dwarfism in MSME sector, which is the second most employment generating sector in India, the dwarfism in those sectors is also a cause of concern. And the skill development front, we have not improved very much, because the nature of economy has been changing. We have been shifted from industrial to service sector, but the commensurate change in skill development has not been there. So this is another area of concern.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, you can give your feedback, I think. Or Neeraj sir, you wanted to ask some questions. You were interrupted in between, I think. Please unmute.
Unmute. मेरे साहब unmute करें.
हाँ, नहीं, मैं कह रहा हूँ कि कोई बात नहीं, मेरा कंप्यूटर फ्रीज कर गया था.
Okay.
हाँ, लॉग बैक करने में थोड़ा सा.
हाँ, तो we can proceed with the feedback.
In panic, I called up Vinod to ask Neeraj sahab. Okay, so others, there you are. Firstly, let me caution you, or rather advise you, that on account of two factors, your first attempt and at this age, you might expect a lot of questions. The expectations from you will be very, very high. That is one. Other area that you might expect questions is on IFS. As to why you opted for number 5, you could have said no also. I mean, that's a trend that you could have said that I'm not opting for IFS, but having put it at 5 may attract a few questions. So just be prepared for it. It's nothing to. Okay, now on 2 observations I would make. I put you a question on CSR, corporate social responsibilities, and I thought that maybe you will list out one of them, which is now in debate, and especially in states of Haryana and Rajasthan, that in the Swachh Bharat mode, while the CSR allows for construction, it doesn't allow for maintenance. So lot many toilets that were constructed have been, abandoned. So that is one area of concern, that there was a debate whether maintenance also should be included in that is one. Then one others which stands out, because otherwise your interview, your responses were very good, excellent, I would say. On one issue, I would like to re-question you, or rather to ask you whether I heard you correct. On ideological view, you said that I am not ideologically connected to any idea or any political. What you meant to say was any political ideas or any political affiliations you don't have.
So
That is what
I meant to say that I do not have any rigidity in my ideology. I try to assimilate the best out of everyone.
So on that, I just wanted to put in a sort of a suggestion to you, that you can have a very firm ideological belief as well, but there you'll just need to, your personality, that part of personality, for as far as you are doing a civil services, need not get, affected by your ideological view. You can have a very strong ideological view also on certain issues. That's all right, because you've been a science student, and then you've gone on to, so there also it shows some flexibility. You've been practical also, that from science you went on to sociology, and with no prompting from anywhere, you had read books of your mother and then from her shelf. So I just thought that maybe you can hold that view, that although you have very strong ideological views on many areas, but that will not affect your functioning as a civil servant. That is a better way of okay.
अरविंद जी आप दे दीजिए फीडबैक.
हाँ नहीं, Adarsh, you have very good knowledge level, and your articulation is also very good. I wish you all the best. I don't have anything to add. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
हाँ आदर्श, मेरी तरफ से मुझे ये लगता है कि आप एक बहुत अच्छे कैंडिडेट हैं, और आर्टिकुलेट भी हैं, कॉन्फिडेंट भी हैं, और अपने उम्र के लिहाज से काफी वेल इन्फॉर्म्ड हैं, और काफी आपने पढ़ रखा है on a wide variety of subjects. That goes in your favor. One or two bloomers you committed. One was that you said there is no law on epidemics. There is a law. There is an Epidemic Diseases Act of 1897 which has been modified. So there is a law and in fact there have been several arrests under the Epidemic Diseases Act. एक और ब्लूमर आपने किया वो सचिन तेंदुलकर के बारे में, क्योंकि सचिन 25 टेस्ट मैचेस में कैप्टन रह चुके हैं और 73 वनडे इंटरनेशनल में कैप्टन रह चुके हैं. तो ये कहना कि वो छोटे से वक्त के लिए थे बहुत बड़ा एक मिस्टेक था. तो क्रिकेट के बारे में चूंकि आपने लिखा है कि ये आपका शौक है, तो थोड़ी और पढ़ाई कर लीजिए, थोड़ा और स्टैटिस्टिक्स आपको पता होना चाहिए, और ओपनर्स कौन रहे, अभी हाल के टेस्ट मैचेस में क्या हुआ. अभी एक टेस्ट मैच आने वाला है जून में, वर्ल्ड टेस्ट मैच, वर्ल्ड चैंपियनशिप, उसके बारे में पढ़ लीजिए. और तो ये सब कुछ कर लेंगे और ऐसी गलतियां नहीं करेंगे तो यू कम अक्रॉस एज अ वेरी गुड कैंडिडेट एंड आई विल रेट यू वेरी हाई. If you want to tell us, because we thought that you should also give us some feedback, how did you feel in the interview, and have you benefited out of it? You can say it in 1 or 2 sentences.
So it was a great experience. It was quite enriching, I would say. The questions were quite diversified from various areas. Even some of the areas which I was not expecting much, it has quite given me exposure and will help me a lot in my personality test. So thanks a lot for this experience.
So with that, on behalf of the board, I wish you all the best. You have done very well. Keep it up. And we are very confident that you will come out with flying colors. All the very best.
You'll make it
all the best, Adarsh. Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Very well done.